Hi, everyone. Today we're continuing to look at the breakdown of feudalism. So, we're going to be focusing on this essential question: what factors contributed to the breakdown of feudalism? We've talked about some major events, some of them being the Crusades. We start to see the destruction of that feudal social hierarchy. And we also looked at the role of the Magna Carta and this idea that kings and monarchs are also subject to law. And so that's also sort of breaking down what rights people have. And now we're going to look into the Black Death. So in 1347, the bubonic plague broke out, and it began in Central Asia. And we have to think about what was going on at this time period. We discussed the Crusades and how people are moving back and forth. Trade networks are also starting to open up, and some of those major ports of entry are located in China, India, and the Middle East. And so this is where we start to see that the plague is breaking out. Um, and so when it originated in Central Asia, people who would be on the ships would infect others on the ships, and then they would enter into these new ports of entries, and then they would also bring the disease with them. Within a few days of falling ill, the victims would usually die. Their bodies would be covered in buboes or swellings, these painful swellings, and their skin would turn black, which is why it gets that name, the Black Death. And researchers and scientists discovered that it was caused by infected fleas that lived on rats. And as a result, between 1347 and 1352, tens of millions of people died from the Black Death. And if we look at this map, this does a great job of showing just the spread of the Black Death. So if we look on the right-hand side, we're looking at Constantinople, but farther east would be more Central Asia. And we can see that Constantinople was a port of entry, and ships would have to cross in through the Mediterranean. And when we get to Italy, we can see that they would either go straight to Venice and then veer off towards Nuremberg, which is Germany, or they would go around sort of the boot of Italy towards Rome and continue heading towards France, and then that just continues up towards England. So rats would be on board those trading ships, and they would also be unloaded when they would leave the ships. So again, some of the symptoms that they notice are those large, painful swellings called buboes. And this all stems from the lymph nodes. So if you're ever sick, you might feel your lymph nodes are enlarged on your neck or in your armpit. Victims would have a really high fever of about 105. So they'd be sweating, they'd be freezing, and they would eventually become delirious. So, how exactly was the disease transmitted? So, the infected flea will transmit the bacteria into a healthy rat by biting the rat. And when that rat then dies, the parasite must look for another host, another warm blooded host, and that would be humans. And so eventually, when the flea would get onto humans, the fleas would bite the humans, regurgitate its blood into an open wound, and that's how humans would get infected with this disease. And again, just another image to show where the outbreaks were. Some of the very first outbreaks, if we look at this orange at the very top in 1347, we can see that it's coming from Asia. And then if we look at the green, we can see how a year later it makes a difference and how this green all happened in about 1 year. And then people were spreading out, and we can just see how this hits in waves. Here we have some imagery of the depiction of what the Black Death looked like during the Middle Ages. You can see how it's completely chaotic. If we were to look at the colors, the imagery, we're seeing a lot of darker colors. We see in this lower left quadrant a skeleton. Two skeletons are riding on a horse, and they have a wagon filled with skulls. So it looks as though this is a port, and it looks like death is arriving. So we can also see here more ships, and it looks like death is also capturing more people. In the back, we notice that death is hiding, that there's really no place to go because you can't escape it. And we can also look what's going on in these images, in these different quadrants. Here are what some of the buboes depictions would be. So again, it's those large, painful swellings that would cover the body. And just another map. Okay, so this is where we're going to end.